Well, welcome to Homeward. I'm Jim Burns. Today we are simply titling this podcast, Ask the Expert, Boundaries with Teens, Part 2 with Dr. John Townsend. That's a long title. Our last podcast with Dr. John Townsend was so good, amazing. And I asked him if he'd just keep on going and let him be the expert as we talk about certain teen topics. Well, he graciously agreed to do it. And then he kind of turned the podcast, you'll see this right at the beginning, by having me role play teen issues with him. And I was the kid and he was the dad. And believe me, it became an incredible conversation. And we spent the podcast kind of modeling, well, he did, healthy behavior and was a great counselor at the same time. So as a reminder, John is one of the people I respect and admire the most in the universe. Plus, he's just an all-around great guy. Dr. John Townsend has been engaging and developing leaders for most of his life. John is a business consultant, leadership coach, and psychologist. I mean, he's written over 30 books, selling over 10 million copies, including the New York Times best-selling Boundaries series that he wrote with our good friend, Henry Cloud. He's written books called People Fuel, Leading from Your Gut, The Entitlement Cure, so many other great books. And today, again, we're talking about boundaries with teens. I'll show it to you. There you go. And in addition to all of these books, he's a leader, a coach, and a speaker, and he spends much of his time developing others through the Townsend Leadership Program and the Townsend Institute for Leadership and Counseling. I mean, it's just an amazing program, and I really suggest you go to the show notes and find out more about him. So today, it's Ask the Expert with John Townsend. Welcome back. I'm Jim Burns. So happy you're with us. And John, today you're going to be Ask the Expert. So people actually write to us all the time, but I'm not even using most of their questions because I'm actually taking statements that you have at the back of your book, Boundaries with Teens. What I loved is you would just take something. You would say, academic problems, breaking agreements, argumentative, drug and alcohol use, and things like that. So I'm just going to throw out a phrase, and I'm going to let you pontificate for a bit with all of our people. And so this is Ask the Expert. And by the way, if you have questions, you can always go to info@homeward.com and you can write your questions. You're not going to get John all the time, but we're going to do a show on just kind of answering the questions, and that'll be really fun. But today we have the expert. And as I mentioned in his bio, he is the expert on this. So some common problems. Let's talk about common problems. One of them is if your kid is having academic problems, what do you suggest if they say, my kid was really good, now he's a teen and he's not very good at academics? What do you say?
You know what might be fun, and this sort of ask the person thing, Jim, we could role play this.
Yeah, okay.
You could channel the parent. No, don't even channel the parent.
Yeah.
Why don't you be that kid?
Yeah.
Who dropped his grades for some reason, and I'll be the skilled parent that we're trying to help.
Awesome.
And I'll see what happens here.
Okay. I'm just going to give you this is kind of my autobiography then. So that's
okay. All right, so I'm going to call you Billy.
Okay.
And I'm Dad.
Okay.
I'm a skilled dad, and everybody. Okay, Jim is Billy who's struggling, and he's a teen.
Be fun.
We'll see how logical and illogical it gets, and we'll see what happens.
So Dad, I know you're mad at me because I got bad grades. I got a D. And I used to do better, but you don't understand how much pressure is on, and the teacher's dumb, and I don't even like it. I don't even want to go to school anymore. I don't want to go to college. I just want to get by, and I know you've told me that I listen to too much music, and I'm always on my social media, but the truth is that that's interesting. School's boring.
I get it. Let me clarify one thing, Billy. You started off by saying you know that I'm mad at you.
Yeah.
And that's not how I feel. I'm concerned. Your mom and I are concerned, but I'm not feeling mad. I'm just feeling kind of like a little bit helpless. Like, how can I help Billy? But let's start off by saying,
so good.
No condemnation here from Dad. Can we agree on that part?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm really interested in when this happened. The D had to happen after something in your head happened. In other words, you didn't decide that everything in school was lame and then be a D guy. Yeah. So when did you start not liking school and thinking it wasn't for you? Well, I think I must have missed out on some conversation.
Yeah, I mean, especially this year. I mean, I have all my teachers are kind of weird and kind of stupid, and I'm just busy doing other kind of things, and there's other stuff to be doing. I mean, I'm active, and it's not like I'm not. I still go to the youth group, and I'm, I'm still, playing sports. But
Absolutely.
The school part is just really boring.
Got it. Okay. You remember Mom and I told you back in the day when we found out, unfortunately, you're really bright. Sorry, that's a cross you got to bear, and that you're capable of really good grades. And we said, you probably got to stick with a 3.0, 3.5, and that cannot include a D. Remember when we told you that a year or so ago? I remember that, yeah. So look at this as our first warning, understanding that you don't like this. But we're kind of like, we would feel bad if you get out and you can do what you want to do, and it's all music and you're all Ds, and then you don't have the life you want. Because if you can bring that D up to a B, then you can have a life of forget school and be a musician all you want, but you've got the option of going into business or whatever. If you don't do that, you only have one option, which is just the music by itself. And our job is to give you options. So we're going to give you a pass on this because it's never happened before. But let's talk about the next report. It's every 6 weeks, right? So something's going to happen if there's anything lower than a B. A's are fine, B's are fine, but you're a 3.0, 3.5, maybe a 3.8 student. So you're going to we'll have to set a consequence. You got 6 weeks to pull this up. And we can talk about it. I think it probably will be because I know how important your music is to you. It'll probably have something to do with limiting your access to music. And we're not trying to be mean. We're just trying to get your attention. So tell me what you think about that, because I want your input on this too.
I'll try it, but I still think the teacher's kind of a waste.
I totally agree. I think some of your teachers are just, jackrabbits. Yeah. And I get it. And I'm not trying to play dad card with you right now, but 20 years from now, you're going to have a bunch of bosses that are jackrabbits. And if you don't have the skills, you're in trouble. So I'm going to have to tell you, it's bad. You don't have to like it, but do what they say and get that B, because I don't want to give you the consequence.
Okay. So good. By the way, we're playing kind of Ask the Expert, but I've just become Billy, and over here is Dad with John Townsend. What a privilege to have that conversation. That was a great conversation.
And Billy, you kind of threw some softballs at me. Thank you for not making it too hard because we're on the air. You could have screamed.
I was going to spit at you or something.
But I'm going to burn the house down. It'd have been a different conversation.
Elijah's in the back here doing our video and our sound, and he might think I'm a bad kid. So I know you've already given me consequences for this. I'm not sure it's fair, and everybody looks at porn. And it was somebody had said to me, did I want to see Miley Cyrus with her top off? And so I went on YouTube. It's only YouTube. It's not hardcore porn. But yeah, you caught me. But this consequence is crazy.
What's crazy about it?
Well, because I think it's really unfair. I mean, I got caught. Everybody does it.
Okay. Well, I totally understand that. Can we go back to sort of the basics of who we are as people? We're a Christian family, and it's really nice that you and your sister are both believers in Jesus like Mom and Dad are. Any questions about that, or do you think?
No, I mean, but I know a lot of people who are in our youth group who look at porn.
Got it. Okay. So the fact is, and you know what our authority is as Christians?
No.
The Bible.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a standard of why God would say something's not good for us. Mm-hmm. And remember when they had that study a few months ago in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 where it talks about keeping your own vessel holy and sanctification, not defrauding yourself, because when a person gets involved in extramarital sex, and that includes porn, now that we're studying neuroscience, it messes up their brain. They don't think clearly. They're not the people that they could be. So it's bad. It's kind of a cancer for the brain. So even though your friends are doing it, our job is to kind of keep you as healthy as we can until you're out and about.
So how come you've taken away my computer access and my phone and all this for so long? Because again, I get what you're saying, but it's not like I'm addicted or anything.
Well, the reason it does so long is because of your attitude. Now, let me explain that, because I thought that we were clear about that. If you'd have said, man, I do love to watch that stuff because my sexual hormones just love that, and my friends love it, but, guys, I get it. It's wrong. It's one of those things. I don't quite agree with you, but you're in charge. We would have made it a shorter time. But what you did was kept pushing us at every single time, Billy, and about how we were lame because the friends are more important, and it can't, you're not really looking at your Bible, these things. That concerns me. It's sort of like, okay, well, if we let him have all the stuff back in, to go right back to it. If we need a period of view from, I would just call cooperation and repentance, where you finally say, Mom and Dad, I don't quite agree, But I am a Christian, and the verse does say that. And sometimes my friends can be lame, and that's not good. So even though I'm grumbling a bit, I get it. I'm on your program. We need a period like that, which hasn't happened yet. You think it could do that for at least a week and show us he can talk about this without telling us everything we feel about extramarital sex is wrong?
So if I say that, and I know
and believe it,
and
not
believe
just
it,
the words.
Okay, so if I say it and believe it, then can I get my access to my computer back in a week? When you said it was going to be a month?
You know what? My one concern is that your whole thing is about being able to have your computer maybe to watch porn again. I hope that's not your. I need to know for something.
No,
from your
I
heart.
need for other things too.
Okay, I need to hear that part, because what I'm hearing is give me something so I can get back on the behavior that got me in trouble, and I'm not interested in the behavioral thing. I want your heart. So tell me about the computer.
Well, I mean, for one thing, for me to get online, I mean, that's where I do my music. That's where I do.
I don't want to take away music from you.
That's where I do my relationships with people. I mean, I'm connecting with people. You know, you won't let me even look at my social media. I mean, I'm not allowed to look at YouTube because that's what you saw me looking at, this, silly kind of what I would even call soft porn. So you've just taken away basically my life.
I got an idea. I don't want to take away your life. And I hear you listening to me better than you have before. Instead of Dad's lame about everything, okay, he may have something to say. I appreciate that. I would make this concession. See if this would be okay with you. We are going to have some passcode stuff going on in our Wi-Fi in the house and in your devices that limits, and I'm not an expert, probably have to talk to some expert, like what's reasonable so that you can have life, music, friends, social, but without the bad stuff. And I would let you have it in, I'd say, a week. If you would let those passcodes happen, and that's going to work, and all that. Yeah, I think I'd be okay. If you keep the attitude I'm hearing now, and you're not going to fight on that, I want you to have a great life without something that I think is bad for you.
So you said you were going to keep looking at my history. So are you going to quit looking at my history in a week? Or are you going to keep looking at my history?
I don't know yet. You'll have to make the decision without me knowing. Yeah. Something I got to think about.
Yeah, that's so good. Okay, so again, John Townsend and myself, I'm role-playing. I'm Billy. I think my parents actually wanted to call me Billy, except my brother's named Billy, by the way. And then he's Dad. And we're just going back and forth with some of these teen issues. It's actually from the book Boundaries with Teens. We're having these kind of conversations. And this is fun. I did not see this coming. And so I'm having a blast with this.
And you upped your game a little bit on this one.
I know. I decided I'd be a little bit more of a hassle.
More about what our audience really deals with.
Exactly. You know what? Church, so I'm going to do it again. Church, it's just boring. They're hypocrites. I don't want to go to the youth group. I still believe in God. I just want to do it on my own. And, so I'll even read on my own, but I do not want to go to church. I do not want to go to that church. They're boring. They're hypocrites. My friends don't go. And I'll be honest with you, I'm having some doubts right now. I mean, I think I've heard you tell me, the doubts can sometimes be okay, but I'm having some doubts that there's even a God, and I just think it's unfair that you guys are like forcing me to go to church.
Do you feel like it's unfair that we force you to, clean your room?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get a measurement on. You're feeling like unduly forced.
Yeah. So I think you guys forced me to do a lot of stuff.
Okay. Should we never force you to do anything?
No. I mean, there's responsibility that as I'm getting older, I needed to have some responsibility. But the church thing, I mean, how can you guys force God on me when I'm not even sure there is one?
Well, okay. I like the way you thought about that, because the word force is very interesting. Force means no choice. So you're saying we're not giving you a choice?
No, you're saying I have to keep going to church.
Yeah. Well, I would say you don't have. There's no way I'm going to, manhandle you and throw you in the car and hog tie you and dump you at the church. I would not force you to do that. I can just tell you what the consequence of being not going to church, and then I maybe have a better solution. But let's try this first one. Are you open to the consequence of not going to church? Because there's no way I'm going to physically make you go.
So, but why are you going to give me a consequence? It's like you're punishing me for not going to church?
You think consequences are punishment?
Sure, I do.
No, consequences. Interesting you say that. I know that a lot of people in the culture we're dealing with think that consequences mean I just want to hurt you or something. And consequences are about helping you make better decisions. I would say if there's no way, no how you would do church, then you're in your room without any input, no media, no social nothing. Maybe some healthy books, and that's it while we're at church.
That just doesn't seem fair. And besides, you told me that you became a Christian in college, and so at my age, you weren't going to church.
I wish my parents had made me go to church. All right, so that you don't like that. So let me give another one that may be more palatable, because I want to be creatively, responsible with you. Mom and I love at our church, but maybe our church isn't really good with teens. Maybe it's a little bit too boring or the music's old. We'd be willing to switch churches. Switch. I'm not talking about drop you off and go to ours. We love you so much, we would go to another one, and you do the research, and you say, I'd feel more connected to these kids, and we would be attending that church until you go to college.
What if I said that I would go to another church, but not with you guys?
If it's the right church, no problem.
Yeah.
In fact, you just came up with a better solution than I did, because I didn't want to leave my church. Way to go, Billy. Have you got one in mind?
Well, I do have a couple of friends who go to the church down the street that I kind of like.
Okay, so they feel like non-hypocrite, okay friends and stuff?
I don't know. We don't talk much about it.
All right.
But they go.
All right. Could you do a little research? Let me know something about it, because I want to make sure they're kind of solid, not perfect. Yeah. And I am more than happy to do it that way. Well, and congratulations, Billy. That was a good win-win.
Boy, that's amazing. Actually, these conversations are so helpful. Sometimes I think if we could only, as adults now, I'm kind of stepping out of this place, but as adults, if we could only, as parents, have these kind of conversations. I mean, we really could learn a lot. I learned a lot by how you handled that. It was very good.
Most of what I do nowadays is role play, because the person goes, I can say that?
Yeah, no, it's really good. Yeah. Our one daughter, we laughed because we played that card on her. We said, look, you don't have to go to our church. You can go someplace else, or you can go to Young Life or whatever. And she goes, well, I'll go to Young Life. You don't have to go to our youth group. And she played that card, right? Yeah. And we were like, oh, but we wanted her to play the card to come to our church and make Sunday special and all that kind of stuff. And she played the card going to this Christian club. It was great for her. Yeah.
What a win-win.
Yeah. It was kind of interesting. The funny thing was she liked, my background is youth ministry. Mm-hmm. So the youth workers would say, oh, I love your dad. I read his book. We're using his curriculum and all this. That daughter did not want to hear that. So one day at a Young Life event, they were having a car rally or something. And so I got there early, and I meet the Young Life leader. I'd not even met the Young Life leader, and my daughter loved this. And so he's talking to me as a dad. He said, sorry, we're running a little bit late. They're still doing this car rally. So, do you want to come into my office? I come in, I see my books there. He has like the Jim Burns Youth Ministry shrine.
Was there a small altar there too?
Yes, no, but so he said, so what do you do? And I said, I work for an organization called Homeward. And he goes, you do? He goes, well, like Jim Burns, look at all of his book. He didn't know I was Jim Burns. And then he goes, Heidi Burns, are you Jim Burns? And I go, yeah. Well, then he makes the mistake of when Heidi comes back, oh, your dad is amazing. I've learned all this stuff from your dad. And I watch Heidi's face just kind of go, okay, I've been seen. She still went to Young Life, and it was still good. But it was one of those kind of things of going, oh my gosh. But
my kids do the same thing. Yeah. And we'll be somewhere, there'll be dinner, and somebody will say hi, and and their line now is when somebody says, so did you really learn all the stuff that he's teaching? And they'd say, we lived it. Don't worry about
it. Exactly. Oh my gosh. I feel like we have had our own personal counselor today. Well, I guess we kind of have. Out of all the counselors I know, John Townsend would be my first choice to run these kinds of problems and issues by a counselor. And hey, we had him in studio. How great. Awesome. We need to take a short break. And don't forget, you can learn all things John Townsend in our podcast show notes. And when we come back, we'll continue these conversations in this manner, where I'm the kid and he is the dad. Role-playing's fun.
I'm Erin Mashaw, and I want to invite you into an honest conversation about one of life's most awkward yet important topics: sex.
Conversations about sex can bring up all kinds of weird emotions, not the least of which is awkward. But that's not a reason to avoid the topic altogether.
So, if everybody's doing it, then what's the big deal?
Where do you go with your questions? There are lots of voices telling you who you are, how to dress, what to think, how to feel. So how do we know what to listen to? Who can we trust to guide us?
When we treat others with radical respect, we honor God, we make our lives and relationships better, and we reflect God's love to the world all around us.
Now, I know you might be thinking, what? I don't need guardrails. I have good intentions, but what if intention isn't enough?
And as you think about the path from where you are now to where you want to be, who are the friends that can help you get there?
You'll hear personal stories, helpful advice, and truth from the Bible about how to make wise choices when it comes to love, sex, and dating.
Imagine being able to look back on this stage of your life without regrets about the way you handled relationships. You're not going to get there by accident. You're going to have to decide in advance what guardrails to put in place to get to where you want to be.
Join us for a student's guide to sexual integrity.
Welcome back. I'm Jim Burns. Today, John Townsend in the house. We're having this conversation, and actually, we're now role-playing. And John is dad, and I am Billy.
Skilled dad.
You are
the dad that we all want to be.
Totally. You are the dad. I mean, I'm like, man, that's good stuff. I didn't do it like that with my kids. But we're talking about his book, Boundaries with Teens. And the previous podcast, by the way, was an incredible podcast. If you're getting this later, you want to go back to the podcast number 1 and listen to that podcast or watch it on the YouTube channel. But what I'm doing now is I'm just kind of throwing things at him. I'm letting him respond as a dad, but he's kind of playing dad with a little bit of counselor in him as well, because that is the way it's happening. So here we go. We'll do it again. Okay, so I know I broke curfew. And I know that you took away the ability for me to drive, except Mom one time, you don't know this, but Mom needed some milk at the grocery store. And so she told me to go get the milk and said she'd cover it with you. But anyway.
I've got a lot of trust in your mother.
Okay, good. So, but at this point, I mean, I broke curfew. I get it. But, it wasn't really my fault. My friend had this problem and his grandmother died. And, so we were out late talking about it. I was doing the kinds of things that you would want me to do. And I know I didn't call, and I could have called. But, I mean, isn't there any way I can get, a break on the driving curfew? Oh, I know. I also got that ticket. So that's not good either. I get it.
I didn't mean laughing. I was laughing, but I'm not laughing at you. Just kind of the funny scenario.
And by the way, sure. And I'm paying for the ticket. I know I owe you money for that. But, it just seems to me that, I think you guys are being way too harsh on the consequences for my driving.
What do you recommend?
Well, let me drive again, and give me another chance. I realize I've broken curfew a few times, but give me another chance to try to be on time. And, I do the best I can.
I appreciate your positioning like that, Billy. Let's kind of look at what you said. I need another chance. Well, gosh, we all have those. And at the same time, I know I have had another chance several times. In fact, it was 4.
Yeah.
So I've done that for you 4 times to help me. I'm kind of feeling like a disconnect. Why do I give you another one when you still acted out the first 3 times?
Well, I mean, I most of the time I do get home for curfew. So,
Right. But
I'm busy. I was thinking about other things. I mean, there's other stuff going on. I forget to call you. I'm sorry.
Okay. So let's play the movie. So I do, because I love you and I want you to have freedom. So I go, he blew it, and then we gave him. We didn't really do much about it. He blew it, and we gave him another chance. And now you want another chance, and we see no reason to, but we love you. And so let's play the movie. We give you another chance. What's to give me confidence that these days of breaking curfew are over?
I mean, curfew isn't that big of a deal, so it's not. I mean,
then we shouldn't even have this conversation. Let's go have lunch.
Okay. So
I'm just joking
have my
because a lunch with you still having curfews. If you say it's not a big deal, why are we having the conversation? Yeah. Certainly, it's a big deal.
Okay, but John, who he even goes to our church. I mean, John's curfew is a whole hour different than my curfew. I mean, what's up with that?
I know. Well, let me kind of keep the flow going here. I'll handle that with you. Remember we told you when you guys turned to teenagers, we weren't going to be the coolest parents?
Yeah.
And that,
yeah.
Sorry about that. And we probably are a tad stricter than other people. And that's just kind of the way it happened that you got born in this family. So we love John, but we think we have the right curfew. That's just kind of it. That's you're a Burns. But back to the point, I haven't heard confidence that you have learned anything from us. Give me another chance.
Well,
You haven't shown me any reason why it's not going to happen again in a week, except for I want to. So help me. Convince me. Because I would like to try, but I don't see any reason. I'm playing the movie, and it's good 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, 10 times, Billy.
I mean, is it that bad to be late for curfew? I mean, the one time you were all mad at me, I was only late by 20 minutes.
Yeah, I get it. Let me tell you my concern. There's house rules that's not huge, like doing drugs is huge. Curfew's not huge. And I will rethink if Mom and I are being too strict about it. But I've got to hear an attitude change first. You're 16 and you'll be out of the house in 18 months. I get that. And maybe it's time for us to adjust it, but not with a how unfair we are attitude. I would like for you to, let's talk tomorrow and think through it. And think of a way to position with me and Mom. Here's the reason I think I'm mature enough for this. Because all I hear is that our ideas are lame. And that doesn't feel like a dad that I want to be. So let's come back in a day and you tell me and I'll rethink it. So now a day's passed. So did you have a day to think about maybe a different way to say?
Well, I did. I mean, maybe there could be a consequence. If I stay with curfew, then yeah, give me a consequence, but give me another chance. And yeah, you can give me I think sometimes it's too strong if I break a curfew. But
how much is it now? Is it a week? Is it a year?
Yeah, it's a week.
Okay.
That's a long time, Dad. I mean, I've got a lot of things to do. I'm busy and,
Unfortunately, I think a week's pretty reasonable. I can't change on that one.
Yeah.
So we may have to just agree to disagree. But here's what I will do. If I see you go longer periods of time without breaking curfew, right now you've been averaging about every 2 weeks. Okay, and that's a bad movie for me.
Right.
If you'll go a month, then I'll keep it at a week. In fact, I'll knock it down to 6 days.
Wow.
If you know another month, I'll go down to 5 days. But we got to have a lot better behavior. Then the movie changes for me. So I am compromising not some principles, but I'm compromising some consequences because I want you to have the feeling of all I got to do is really think about it, and then I get a day less and a day less and a day less. Because otherwise you're a great kid. So I don't want to put the hammer on you. How's that sound? I'm not asking if you like it because I know I don't like it. I mean, you don't like it, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. Or can you live with that?
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks. You're a good kid, and I'll do my best.
Yeah. Man, that's just great role playing. I felt cared for by you. I felt understood by you. You told me that you were going to even think about it for another day. I mean, me come back. I didn't really give you much different when I came back.
But the attitude was different.
Yeah. And so again, what I hear you saying a lot is attitude. You've said that in a couple of these things where the kid, has some struggles or whatever, and you go, hey, there's going to have to be an attitude change.
Because kids know. Are you just telling me to say, yes, Dad, Mom, Dad, and I'm really mad at you inside? And that's not what we want. We want a little bit of relational connection.
Right.
Not just the behaviors.
Yeah, I didn't see you, again, we're pulling out of this now, but I didn't see you breaking relationship.
There you go.
Kind of the old style, Dad, is because I said so. Now go get your butt, and go do whatever. Yeah. What I heard you saying was you were listening to me. You actually were willing to compromise something. You didn't compromise, on the the 1 week on that last one.
I'm not going to go to 4 days.
It was really good how you did that, but you didn't. So you didn't compromise at the beginning, but I felt loved and understood. And I think a lot of times now thinking about teens, they sometimes don't feel loved, understood, or cared for. And the bottom line, even when they disobey, is, do you still love me?
Right.
So one of the things we have to do as parents is convey love in the midst of, sometimes even some disappointment or some fright because they are involved in drug and alcohol abuse, or they're involved with some of the tougher type stuff.
Yeah, and if you got these two things going on one's to convey love, and the other is at 16, you ought to have some input on the decisions.
Yeah.
Because you always got to think about what's it going to be like in their 20s when they're dealing with a boss or whatever.
Right.
If they don't know how to negotiate well for their position, if all they know is do whatever they say, you've lost.
Yeah.
So some input with the love is really helpful.
Yeah, it's really good. And, there's a phrase that I use a lot. People support what they help create. And I think teens support what they help create. And so if you can ever get a plan together, what I saw you coming back on a couple of these issues is you were saying, okay, let's create this together. Mm-hmm. You're still in charge. Mm-hmm. So you're coaching and consulting. You're still in charge, but you were listening to me. And if I feel heard and if I'm part of the creation of the plan, then truly I'll probably buy into it a lot more than if you just tell me, if you do this again, you're looking at porn, I'm going to break your computer and you're not going to see it until you're 25.
Mm-hmm. Right.
and I'll make your life miserable. That's not a good answer. Even though you're frustrated at
It's
that.
like looking at Galatians 5 through an adolescent's head. It's for freedom Christ died. Don't let anybody take away your life for freedom. If they have some choices, the ownership would be much better.
Yeah, no. So good. Listen, time has gone by. That was a really neat thing. By the way, drum roll. First time we've ever done anything with role playing, and it's really powerful. So what I hear you saying is sometimes what parents could do is either do the role play with their kids, just model some of the stuff you were doing, or actually if they needed help, then they could even say to a counselor, a pastor, somebody, could you help us kind of do some role playing in this issue? We want to resolve the problem in a greater way than what we've done because it's not been working.
Yeah, I always tell them, don't do it with your kid first, because they're going to feel like manipulated.
Yeah.
Go to either mom and dad do it themselves,
Right.
or they get a friend or somebody, and you do two types of role plays. One is where you play the person with the problem, like you play the kid, and so one of you channel your kid who's out of control or whatever,
Right.
and you do the skilled parent, and then you switch it back, and now you do the skilled parent, and then the other does the kid that's acting out, and you can go, oh, I have some competence left.
Yeah.
I found that people will have an anxiety of like a Spinal Tap 11 out of 10, about confronting their kid because it's so awful. And they finish a role play and they go, oh, I'm about a 6 now. I can handle this.
Yeah, it wasn't so bad. We want to, and you mentioned it, we don't want to, we want to be their friend. We want them to like us. We're not in the business to be their best friend. We're too old to be their best friend anyway. Their best friend should look more like them and probably act a little bit more like them. So when we do that, I think we're making a big mistake because now the respect that they have for us is very, very different because we're just trying to be the cool parent, and that's not going to get us anywhere.
Yeah, when you think about the whole thing about the generation gap and the authority gap, if you're trying to get rid of that, then here's the question I always ask parents like that. Now, what does your child have to aspire to?
Yeah.
There's only a 40-year-old teenager in the room with them. Right. What do they have to aspire to? Say, I want to be like that someday.
Wow,
the generation gap is good for us.
Yeah, somebody needed to hear that on this message. John, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, if you couldn't tell, I love this podcast. It's so fun to hang out with John and hear him model how to talk with his teenager. I mean, that's great for all of us, right? Here's what some of the things he taught us. Number one is don't even try to be their best friend. You're not. They think you're too old. And you got to be the parent. So you need to have boundaries and be the authority, but you don't have to be a bad person to do that, okay? You can be loving and caring. Well, speaking of loving, number two, be loving and understanding and help them create a plan with boundaries to live the teenage years. That's not always easy to do, but people support what they help create, and you want your teens to do that, okay? Number three, don't be afraid to bring in what John called a referee, what I call a moderator to help. Where there is no counsel, the Bible says, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors there is safety. Sometimes when you need a breakthrough with your teens, you just bring somebody else in, and actually they do better, you do better, and everybody does better. Okay. Well, thanks for listening today. Homeward has great resources for teenagers. One of our most popular seminars is called Understanding Your Teen. And if you think your church might be interested in sponsoring a Homeward seminar on understanding your teenager, or one of the many other great seminars we do at Homeward, then go to our website, homeward.com, take a look at our seminars. And if you can't do an in-person seminar, you can purchase a course. It's cheap on the subject of understanding your teen, and you can put some people in front of you in a small group, or you can do it on your own at your leisure, if you would. I think we have 15 courses now, and they're so practical and so good. So again, my thanks to John Townsend, and thanks to you for joining us. Until next time, I'm Jim Burns, and you're listening to Homework.